Hello everyone and welcome into another episode of the Gibson Show Shorts, where I am joined by the reality TV star, no, not that type of TV, but the good type of reality TV, the one and only Mr. B. Mr. B, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's good to get these kicked off, ahead of SI Quals. It's good to talk to somebody from NA, because before it's really only been Parker and people, working at the Tier 1 scene, so now I get to get a little bit of gossip about Tier 2 and what that life's like. So first off, massive congratulations on winning Challenger League. I think you had a couple of teams maybe threatening you, but for all intents and purposes, it was pretty much plain sailing, right?
Yeah, it wasn't too rough. No, it wasn't too rough. It was pretty easy.
Yeah, so
in the nicest way possible.
Yeah, but look, that's a good thing, because you look at your roster. A couple of guys have already made the jump up to Tier 1, moving to Parabellum, and obviously DZ as well being announced today. So really, a lot of people must be thinking you should be the next one up.
Well, that's what I've been thinking. No, so I've had a few opportunities, and I think I've gotten really far in a lot of these processes. But it's when it comes down to it, and you're looking at especially support or even IGL talent, right? For most people, experience trumps, and so it's a bit rough when it comes to those things, right? But I'm sure my time will come, and when it does, I'll just got to keep winning.
Yeah, well, I'm sure a lot of people are looking forward to I've jumped into Jacob's streams, Jesse streams, and Taro, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's reality TV, Mr. B." You're the first person that people talk about when they get up. So I think as we look to move forward towards the SI Quals, you've got a really big opportunity. You're coming up against SSG, you're coming up against Mirage, and obviously TSM. You're playing SSG first, and they're obviously a very good side, a couple of years removed from winning SI themselves. They've made a couple of roster changes. Is this a matchup that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, they're a fun team. They've got a ton of just raw talent on that roster. But some they're getting a little old. All right, maybe we can poke apart a couple weaknesses. Yeah, I don't think they're unbeatable for sure. But they're a scary team to play against just because they're so kind of their drone work. It makes them really difficult to play against. It's weird to explain, but yeah, no, their super heavy drone work play style is kind of rough to work around, especially for somebody who likes to kind of predict everything, and it's like suddenly they do something I'm not quite ready for.
And momentum's obviously a really big thing whenever it comes to sports in general. And one thing that I think you guys have that SSG don't is that massive amount of momentum behind you. Completely undefeated through the season. You did pretty good in SCS as well. You're used to winning games this year, whereas SSG, they've not quite had it all their own way. Is that something that you think you can leverage going into this game?
Well, I have an expectation of winning, right? Whenever I go into any lobby, and so I think that does definitely help, right? I think my players get that energy from me, or from themselves potentially. But it's like every single game we do, we know we can win. We expect we can win, right? It doesn't matter who we're going up against. I think that's a really big thing. So I think if especially if these teams aren't 100% ready for the way we play, I think we're going to come out the gate swing.
Yeah, I'm excited because I did watch some Challenger League, and you guys were really fun to watch. I'll be honest, Luminosity Gaming, they had a pretty good roster as well. They played some pretty good Siege. But I think the one thing about you guys in particular is the fact that everybody has an impact on the game. Over the finals, I think maybe 4 out of the top 10 players all the way through the finals were SSG players based on rating alone. You were 1.13, which is, nice. It's nice to have that well over positive rating. What do you think it is about reality TV that makes you guys so good, and especially considering you have lost players, being able to keep at the top of that level?
I could say me. I think that's a bit of an egotistical way to put it. But I will say it's the players that I choose to pick up, or the team chooses to pick up, all have a huge drive to win, right? And I think that's and they love the game and this and other. And so we're able to put in all that extra work. We're able to, just every single time we show up, just love the game. And I think that's so big, and especially when you're getting to a lot of these pro levels, right? A lot of people, yeah, they still, they enjoy playing the game or whatever, but for them it's a job, right? It's something they have to, show up to every day. And for us, we're unpaid, and we've been unpaid for years, right? So for us, we show up every single day out of the fucking love of the game, right? And that's all that makes us show up.
And I think that's great, because you're not the only Tier 2 team that's playing in the closed quals across the regions. Obviously, we've got Makers. They're playing in the EU quals. They qualified for SI, a couple of years ago as well. So there is a a path there of tier 2 teams making that jump up. If that tier, you make that big jump and you qualify for SI, you're going to have a bit of a decision to make, aren't you? Because there's going to be a lot of orgs probably looking to pick up RTV.
Yeah, so we've been kind of pretty good about staying orgless, right? Just with the way buyouts and everything work, I've wanted to always give myself and my players the best chance of getting picked up into Pro League, right? It doesn't matter if it's not that large of a buyout, right? When it's, when you're talking about $1,000 deals, right? Tens of $1,000 deals, right? Things change if, you have to pay an extra $10,000-$20,000 on top of that because of a buyout. So I think even if we make SI, I don't think, as long as we are a Challenger League team, I don't expect we'll sign to org. It would have to be really it would have to be an over-the-top offer, which I'm not personally expecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because a lot of the orgs, we've had people reach out to us, and it's pretty clear that they're like, hey, we can pick these guys up and then we can sell them, right? Because we can stick a big price tag on your players, and we know your players are like the hot commodity. But that means my players then have less a chance of getting picked up, right? And so for the little bit of pay that they'll be receiving, it's not worth it for them potentially losing an opportunity.
Yeah, and obviously you won quite a bit of prize money too, and it's nice the fact that there's no org taking a cut out of that as well. So you spoke about players making that jump. Obviously, Gaveni and Packer have made the jump up to tier 1 lately. The Gaveni one, being announced pretty much today, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
How excited are you for him moving into that DZ roster? Because Canadian's the most decorated player in Siege. He's won pretty much everything. How big of an opportunity do you think it is for him to join that team?
I'm excited for him. I think it's gonna be really great for his career, but I am a little worried. I've seen kind of how they're playing him. I don't necessarily love it, and I think I'm not sure it's gonna help him grow as a player in the way he should. That's my only worry with Dark Zero, right? And him going there. But I still think it's an amazing team, and I'm sure they're gonna have great results. But I think for him personally, I'm not sure it's gonna give him the growth he'll want to have, right? He's the player that I'll be honest, probably shouldn't be playing your Dokkaebi and your whatever. He should be put on the guns to win the rounds, right? That's the kind of player he is. He's a star player, and Darcer isn't using it that way because they don't really play that way, and that's fine. But I would have liked to have seen him on maybe a different team where he could have shown a bit more. But I'm sure he'll still make great results and he'll be outstanding. So I'm excited to see it.
And as I said, he's got a great cast around him to kind of help him grow as a player as well. So let's get stuck into the nuts and bolts of this then and talk a little bit about the SI Quals that are coming up. You're obviously waiting to pick up that next player. We're not going to talk about that today because we don't want to give any roster leaks out there.
Listen, it's all in the works. I have to work around so many tryouts and everything. So if you want my opinions on kind of things I'm looking at, I'm willing to go there. So that's not something that's out of reach from me.
We'll talk a little bit about the sort of player you're looking for, and I'm sure that R6 leakers Twitter then will go crazy trying to guess Citizen's actually not joining X team, he's actually moving to RTV. But no, let's talk a little bit about the upcoming games. So we spoke about SSG, and we spoke a little bit about how you expect that game to go. The other matchup was a team you've already played pretty recently in Mirage, and they're playing against the current SI champions in TSM. How do you think that matchup looks on paper? Because to me, Mirage came out of the blue in Stage 3, and they made the major, regardless of how the major went. They had a brilliant Stage 3, and TSM, they've had that hangover since SI. They've not really been that team since then. What are your expectations in that matchup?
So I love the guys on Mirage. I think they're great people. And I think they are a solid team. But my worry is just kind of the raw talent that TSM has might just kind of roll them over a little bit, right? I've gotten to team with players like Snake, and they're terrifying, right? They're the kind of players you take gunfights against, and you they're gonna win it every single time. So I think although Mirage is a solid team, I would worry for them going into SI Close, and I think it's going to require a lot out of their kind of coaching staff to kind of pull some things out of their ass in the nicest way possible.
Yeah, because it's a fun one. Because like I said, it is the team that are current SI champions taking on the team that came out of nowhere in Stage 3. When you look at their glow up from Stage 1, 2 to 3, it's really impressive. And obviously you'll be hoping then that if things go your way, it'll be you against TSM based on what you said in the final. We're not going to talk about their strengths and weaknesses because, we don't want to give away any of your plans. But in a matchup against TSM, where you are playing current SI champions, they've got some of the biggest names in NA playing for them. Is there any nerves at all? Because speaking to you, I don't get the feeling you're a nervous guy at all. I think you just take every game as it is.
Oh no, listen. I spent 2 years of my life losing every single match I played, right? And that's not a thing a lot of people know, right? Before I won every match, I lost every match. Yeah. And so, kind of with that experience under my belt, it's like I can go in every match, and if I lose, right, I'll be sad, whatever. But I've learned to lose. It's fine, right? But I enjoy winning so much that I go into every single game, and I need to win. That is my lifeblood. And so I think it doesn't really matter what team I'm going up against, right? I know I can win. I know I'm capable of winning because I know I'm the best player in every single lobby I hop into, right? Even if I'm not, I know I am, right? If that makes sense. I don't need to be the best player in the lobby to know I'm the best player in the lobby.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at the way players play in particular, and you look at maybe entries, supports, whatever role you play on a team, you've got that confidence line. And you can tell when a player's confident because the decision making's quicker, they're more likely to back themselves in gunfights. And, it is a fine line between confidence and cockiness in a gunfight. You get to a point sometimes where you're in a round, you get a 2k early on, and you think you're Superman, so you go and take on a fight that you shouldn't and you lose. But I think for the most part, fans and players and casters, people like confident players because if you back yourself and lose, there's no harm. That's the way I see it. If you back yourself and you lose a gunfight, hey, there's another round, there's another opportunity. You'd rather that than players maybe play more passive. We've seen it in the past at Tier 1 where a player's just not quite playing well, and because of it, they just don't play the same way they normally would. So, right, that's the NA scene. And we want to talk about the teams that maybe have qualified for SI out of NA. So obviously you got Sonics in there, you got OXG. What are your thoughts for NA going into this SI? Because obviously the year started so well. Obviously TSM, then you have DZ, then EU kind of picked up the momentum after that point. Do you see this as the back-to-back-to-back SIs for the NA region? Or is there any teams out there other than BDS at the minute who you'd be maybe worried about on that global scale?
I think when it comes to a lot of our teams, I think absolutely, right? But I do think we have a few exceptional teams that are going to be really tough to go up against. But I think they are a little bit flaky sometimes, right? A lot of our top teams are super gun skill dependent. And if one of their players is just having an off day, right? I think that could be that for the team. So I think this SI is going to be super close, and I think it's really just going to depend on who's having the better day, right? I think there's EU has a couple strong teams, NA has quite a few strong teams, and LATAM's looking pretty solid as well, right? They're in a bit of a rebuilding process, but still coming along. And W7M, of course, is W7M. Yeah. But so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, no, I think NA definitely can win this event, but I think it's going to be a challenge. I wouldn't go into it expecting NA to win like I have some previous events.
Yeah, I think the three, LATAM, NA, and APAC, or LATAM, EU, and NA right now are really strong. It's not just one good team from each region anymore. There's multiple good ones, and it's even hard to talk about it now because rosters aren't locked yet. There's still questions up on the air on what the rosters are going to look like going into it. I know there's a lot of people out there with a lot of love for Liquids, hearts broken for Nesk and Palu, but maybe they could win it on the biggest stage. I want to get your thoughts then on EU. So obviously we spoke about BDS, so you're looking at Wolves. What do you think about how EU plays at the minute compared to NA?
So I think it's a lot more similar than it used to be, right? I think when you look at a lot of these EU teams, yes, sometimes they previously the idea was that NA played a lot more kind of loosey-goosey, and EU is very structured and just step by step, get the job done. But I think that's totally changed, right? I think it's rather than looking kind of region dependent, I think it's much more team dependent, right? Like in NA, we've got our step-by-step teams in Dark Zero, right? And we've also got our kind of more loosey-goosey teams in, in OXG or Sonics, right? I think it's the same in EU, right? Like you've got those, BDS who are a lot more loosey-goosey and are going to make things happen. And I think, although I don't keep as much up with the EU scene, I know there are teams that do play in that same kind of structured way as, a Dark Zero might. So I think it really is region dependent. So I wouldn't say it's so much individual playstyles per region as it's individual playstyles per team.
Yeah. Well, look, it's obviously difficult for you as well with your time zone to watch some of the stuff in EU because it is a massive time zone. We found that out that today when we were trying to get this organized. But we'll wrap up a little bit by talking about you. So obviously you have this massive persona, MrB. We spoke about everybody seems to know who you are, whether it's EU, whether it's NA. You're a known personality. What is it about you that you think people are kind of drawn to and people love talking about you?
I think it's mostly winning. If I'm gonna be honest, I think people like to see people win. I've seen it, right? As soon as you kind of lose the game, people go, "Oh, I don't know if I mess with this guy anymore." So as long as I keep winning, I think people are gonna stay on my side. But I think that does. People turn very quickly, so I think of course you're gonna have people that stick with me and really like me because I am that kind of underdog story, and I've got the confidence and everything backing me, right? And I'm kind of an up-and-coming OGL, which you don't see very often. But at the end of the day, I do think a huge part of it is just winning, right? People like to see teams win, right? Look at peak, Penta G2. It's like everyone was a Penta G2 fan because they were the only team that was winning.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And even when you look at your posts on socials, when you were talking about making the jump to tier 1, a lot of tier 1 players, and not just normal players, but big names were kind of getting on board saying, you should be up there, you should be in there. So looking at those tier 1 players, you're MrB, there's no other MrBs out there, you've got your personality, but are there any players that you really look up to, whether it be styling a part of your game on, whether it just be what they've achieved and what they've done? Like, who is it out there that you admire as pro players?
Nobody. I think I am myself, and I will always be myself, right? And I have to be the first to figure everything out myself because I have full faith in my abilities, and I think the moment I start, comparing myself to somebody else or looking at somebody else's inspiration, it's like, I could look at them and be like, okay, I like the way this works or whatever. But I think it's a lot better for me to just focus on, my own self-improvement, right? Every single day, just 1% better. And that's when I'm saying 1% better, that's a big ask. And so but it is just about that steady improvement. I don't look at individual players like, I guess, inspiration. There are players I think are like amazing at certain things, right? Like I had the pleasure of playing with Geometrics recently, right? Geo. And he's one of those players that I think he's often a little overlooked in some ways. But I'll tell you that there's a reason that guy's a world champion, right? Like I play with a lot of great people. He is the best player I've ever played with, right? But I still believe I can and will beat him.
Yeah. I think I like that you brought up Geo because I actually had the opportunity to speak to him for a few hours in an airport of all places recently, and I think you'll agree with me. He's a really down-to-earth and nice guy as well. Like, I think that kind of attitude goes a long way as well whenever you're looking for orgs. So I think that kind of covers it. I don't want to take up too much of your time because, it is the holiday period. You're getting ready for a big push next the start of the year to make SI. What a story it would be if reality TV go all the way from NACL to qualifying for 6th Invitational. I'm sure you'd have a lot of fans for doing so.
I appreciate it. Yeah, that's the game plan, and I'm always one step further than that, right? Why not win SI?
Yeah. Oh, well. honestly, I like confidence. So I love the fact that you're not just saying, we'll go there and we'll have some fun. Right now you're saying, you know what?
Oh, no.
If we can qualify, we can win.
Exactly. If I can beat SSG and TSM, there's no reason I can't beat everybody else.
Well, look, I love it, MrB. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap up to the MrB fans out there? I know there's a lot of them on Reddit in particular.
Well, I genuinely do appreciate all the support. It does mean a lot, and I'm just glad you guys are here and supporting the ride. Right? It's just tune in, and there's more things to come.
Sounds great. Thank you, MrB, and best of luck in the upcoming quals. If you haven't already, guys, make sure to give MrB a follow on his socials. I'm pretty sure most people watching this will have followed him already. But make sure you do, and check out the rest of the guys on the reality TV roster, which I'm sure will be confirmed pretty soon as well. But look, as I said, have a lot of fun, and we'll talk to you guys later.